if you've seen my previous tutorials, then you'll already know how to make these lovely needle felted pumpkins and acorns. Now I'm going to show you how to make a complete garland with adding the gorgeous needle felted mushrooms. So taking some carded wool and just gently teasing it in your hands, thinning it out a little bit, we're going to make the stalk. There's two ways to make the stalk. There's the barbecue skewer way up in the left, which I always find really quick, so it'd be the one that I tend to use. But the one I'm showing you here is where you flat felt your carded wool as you start, and then what we're going to do is we're going to actually roll that up and shape it into a stalk. It does take a bit longer, but the results are just as good. And I really like this method as well. So I'm not fussed whether you use the barbecue skewer or the roll method, but if you are in a hurry, then the barbecue skewer is definitely quicker. But the trick is it's got to be firm. So make sure that wool is firm. I'm using a really nice carded oatmeal wool here, which I think is perfect for the stalks of this mushroom. And then what I'm doing is I'm just felting it all together till it's firm, and then I'm going to just flip over the end so that that is going to be the base of the mushroom stalk, and it's going to be slightly wider. Don't worry about all those little unsightly lines that you can see at the moment. We're just going to add a little bit more wool around that soon, just to cover that up. So the trick is not to get stressed about getting it perfect, because as you can see, I'm just adding some more wool on top, and that soon gets rid of all those lines. So it doesn't need to be stressful or difficult. It's really easy. It's just a case of grabbing your needles and getting started. And this is just a super easy tutorial. And the great thing about this as well is I'm going to show you at the end that I've turned it into a garland, but you can make a gorgeous brooch just by putting a little brooch back on, and then it's perfect to wear during the autumn season. And even over Christmas, you can make lots of these little mushrooms and hang them on your Christmas tree just for a much more natural look, which is definitely something I'm going to be doing. So as you can see, we've almost formed our stalk. Now we've left it loose at the end though, because that end bit is going to be attached to the back of our mushroom cap once we have finished. You see there how that's loose? So leave that loose and then just check that it's really nice and firm. You don't want any squidginess, just nice and firm so that it doesn't flop over. So now we're going to make the mushroom cap. I've got a mustard wool here, but you can use, as you can see on the table, I've got lots of different colours. And the easiest way I find to do this is to just either draw a triangular shape or create a triangular shape with your hands, whichever way works best for you. So you just get your needle felting pen or your felting needle, draw a very rough triangle, just so that we've got an edge to work around. Once you've done that, you're going to fold in those edges, and because you've got that line to draw around, it gives you a really neat finish. So you've got no raw wool because all of that wool is being pulled in towards the center. So you have a really nice, neat edge. If you're making quite a few of these, then I love to use the punch needle to speed it up. It just makes the felting process so much quicker. I think I've got 5 needles in this one, but you can have a total of 7. And I think the clover tool has a maximum of 5. But if you see these blue and light blue and dark blue ones, then buy those because they're much cheaper and they do the same job. So as you can see, really felting it so it's nice and firm. And I'm also creating the shape as we move around now. I just want to flip up the base of the cap just so that we've got an even neater finish there, and I just felt that it was a little bit long. And then I'm just working along the edges just to straighten them and neaten them. And please watch your fingers when you do this. Wear finger guards if necessary, but always keep those fingers spread and well away from the needle hand. It's a little bit thin in the middle, and that's the beauty of this project. You can add more wool. Don't add too much to start with. If you add too much to start with, you might end up with too much bulk, but you can always add more. And that's probably one of the key factors in needle felting, is to start with less than you think you need and then just build it up. And that will help you so much going forward and improve your needle felting techniques. And so this is a brilliant beginner's project, but it's just great for anyone to do if you just want a bit of creative respite. And if you see in the top left corner there, I've made a slightly thicker mushroom cap there, just by piling up the wool as I've gone along. So I'm adding extra layers just to make it thicker. So if you want something a little bit more sturdy, or you just like your needle felted 2D needle felting a little bit thicker, then just keep adding more layers, and that's entirely up to you. But I just wanted to show you how easy it is to do that. And if you're turning it into a brooch as well, that might be a really good idea if it's going to be handled quite a lot. This and really firms it up. So that's a great tip just for building up. And so you start in the middle and work towards the center, staying away from the outer edges. Don't need too much extra, but it does definitely help when firming it up. So there we go, we're almost done. Really pleased with that shape. It's coming along nicely now, and I'm just working along those edges. And where the stalk is going to sit, I want to create a little curve for it to sit in. It just adds to the aesthetic of the finished project. And just keep going until you are happy with how firm it is and with the shape. As you can see, the red wool cap in the top left corner there is coming along nicely, and it's nice and thick. I'll show you a comparison in a minute so you can see how thick it is compared to the green. But just keep working that until you are happy with the overall finish and shape. And there you see how thick that is compared to the green mushroom cap. So entirely up to you. Depends how much dimension you like in them, and it depends what you're going to be using it for. But I find them being quite thin, maybe about 1/2 centimetre is perfectly fine. It's a case of getting that wool really firmly felted. It wants to hold its shape and not flop around. That's the most important thing. And the more you felt, the firmer it will become. And you'll find also that it doesn't stick to the topper anymore. And using that topper is really important. You should always put a topper on your mat, whatever you are felting, because it just makes the life of the mat last so much longer. So I've just gently felted the stalk onto the back of the mushroom and then worked through the front. You'll get a little bit of the light colour showing through, but if you don't overdo it, then you can just pop those fibres back through at a diagonal angle once you've got it nice and firmly attached, as you can see there. But using the diagonal angle means that you're pushing the fibres down rather than out through the other side. So it gets rid of any fibres that have come through and just makes it really neat at the front, as you can see there. So just some final finishing touches before we add the little spots, our little mushroom spots, which are really easy to add. You just take a piece of white carded wool, you pull off the tiniest flecks, and you can either roll it in your hands or just plonk it straight onto the mushroom cap and just felt it in with your needle. Make sure you use a fine needle for this, because you don't want to depress the, not as in sad, but you don't want to cause indentations in what you've already felted. So using a fine needle, I'm using a 40 here, helps to reduce that from happening. And just keep going until you feel like you've got enough on. You can do different sizes, all the same sizes. If you're a perfectionist, you know, you might want them all evenly spaced, but I'm not too fussed. And just keep going with that white carded wool. Carded wool works really well for this kind of surface detail as well. So if you used a wool top as your base and you've got some carded wool, then I tend to find that it just holds much easier and quicker without you having to spoil the shape that you've already created. And then I wanted to add a little bit of detail just around the base of the mushroom. So this is a really nice sort of fawn coloured wool top, and I'm using wool top because you can stretch it and pull it without it breaking. And it's just given it a nice little sort of bit of detail, added detail along the stalk of the mushroom. And you just wrap it around, felt one end, pull it quite tight, and then just felt the other end. And you can put a few pokes in the other strands, but it's not really necessary because it will hold all by itself. And I'm really pleased with those. They look really, really nice. I'm just going to add a little bit of detail, I think, to the base of the mustard stalk. You don't have to do this, but it's just a little bit of contrast at the bottom. So I've got some really nice sort of green carded wool. It's a real sort of sage green as opposed to like a deep forest green. So it's very subtle, and you don't have to do this. But if you just wanted to add some extra detail, then go ahead and do it. And if it's going to be a brooch, then obviously people are going to be looking at it close up. So it works really nice for brooches if you're adding some extra detail in. You can add anything you want. You can add little jewels, little beads, anything you want to sort of embellish it. It's entirely up to you. This is just showing you how simple the basic project is. And then, as you can see on the back of this one, I've added a brooch. So that can be worn on a coat, a hat, or a scarf. And then once you've made a handful of them, they can be added to a really beautiful statement garland. And it's so easy to make. And if you could please support the channel with a like and subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic. Also, if you want to know how to make the needle felted pumpkins and acorns, I'll pop all the links in the description. Happy felting, and thanks so much for watching.